Oh, alrighty, we've started recording. Hey, I hope everybody's having a good time today, and I hope everybody can see my screen. Hillary and Tim will be looking at your questions and trying to keep up with everything. Thank you so much, Tim and Hillary. And on my screen, you're going to see this little CPU usage thing, and I have this. You can get these free from the internet, and I don't know what you Google. I think something like CPU usage, and you'll probably get it. But as you can see, I've got 12 cores here. I've got a fairly powerful machine. But what I do is this, even for me, some of the rendering that happens with painting takes a while. And so I watch this if I'm trying to see how long, if the processing or rendering is still going on. Because if it is, it's not a good idea to try to do something else. If you get too many things going at once, that's one of the things that will crash Painter. So I'm going to have this kind of about around here so that y'all can look at it as you want or as you need to. Okay. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with docking. Painter 12.2 has a new feature called vertical docking, and I'm going to move my toolbar out away from where I'm going to dock. You can't dock your toolbars, okay? But I'm going to go over here first, and I'm going to dock on this side first, and I'm going to start with this setup here, which is my color. I'm going to take my mixer pad out. Navigator, layers, channel, oops, put this one back in. Well, you're getting to see some of the stuff I can do already. All right, I'm going to put these things in first. Now, the way you put the thing, a palette like this, these are palettes when they're combined with a bunch of panels. Each one of these things inside is a panel. All you need to do is take this and run it over to the side of your computer. Keep going until you get a blue line. Does everybody see that blue line? I'm not sure it shows up on GoToMeeting. Tim, can you see it?
Showing it. Good.
Okay,
yep.
Good. Once you see that blue line, you simply let go, and nothing happens. Let me turn off my mail program. All right, so you just have to go on over there till you get to it. There we go. All right, so I had to go a little bit further in to get it there. Now, once you get something in there, you can move something else in there any number of ways. You can move it by using this gray area right up at the top of your panel or palette. Or you could move just the dab and brush calibration together by using this little gray area. See, that moves them both together. Oops, I got them out. I'm going to put them back in. And I want them to be up at the top. And see, I'm looking for that little blue line to pop up to see where it's going to go in. So I can move individual groups by this little gray area, or I can move an individual panel just by grabbing its tab. So see, I move size out by just grabbing the tab. When I bring it back in, I want to look for that little blue line that's right next to where the tab is and let go, and that'll put that back into the panel. All right, so one more time, you've got three things. You've got this that moves the whole palette. You've got this which moves two panels, the two tabs or two panels together. And you can move a single panel by grabbing this tab. Now, I want to go in over here and put this in with this, but I can't right now because if I were to try at this point, it would just not work. And the reason it won't work, see, it's not going in. The reason it won't work is because there's not enough room for it to fit. So what I need to do is close my layers, close my color. Now I've got enough room to fit it in. And even if I close this and the size, Now I've got plenty of room. Now I have two ways to do this. I can bring it over here and just move it up here until I see, well, I apologize. I thought I could move it with this in there. I could on the other side, or I could yesterday, I thought. All right, so what I need to do to move this all in there, if I'm using the big top gray part of the palette, I have to move it all the way over till I get to the blue again and let go. And then it will put it all in place. Okay. Now, somebody had said when you get all these panels over here, it's hard to find out where they are. It's hard to see them and all that stuff. And you're absolutely right. I'm not recommending that everybody put all this stuff over here. I need to put more things over here because I'm working with brushes and I'm showing you how to do things. So I want to be able to get to more stuff. And so all I need to do is put it here, and if I click twice on it, it opens it up. If I click twice again, it closes it. And it's just a nice way, I think a very clean way of working. And you've got, you know, I mean, it's just, everything's really neat over here on the side. Now,
Skip,
yes,
sorry. And presumably, if we were to expand the number of tiers of those panels, presumably it would expand away off screen at the bottom there. Would it, or do panels automatically close when the maximum sort of depth is reached?
No, they would. I see what you're saying. So if this were open, this were open, this were open, and I opened this, and then I opened real watercolors, yeah, they just go down off the screen.
Okay. So there's an opportunity to lose sight of panels if you're not careful, if you've got too many open.
Well, I lose sight of them all the time. It doesn't bother me. I just know they're down there, and when I need to find it, I'll just close something and it comes back up. So I find it fairly easy.
Yep.
Now, on the other side, it's the same thing. You take your image or your palette or panel and bring it over till you find the blue side, and you put it in. Now, watch this. When I take this one in and put it in, notice how it opened up my panel. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to see this section of my mixer pad. So now I have that, and I'm going to bring in this custom palette, and I need to open it up a little more. And there, I've got my custom palette, I've got my mixer, and so I'm doing pretty well, and I still have nice room to work, and everything is very neat on the other sides. So that's the way you can set up your docking. Now, I've saved my arrangement to a different way, a little bit different from what I did. It's just going to move some of the flow maps and stuff over here on this side, papers and things, so that they're available for me to show you what's going on. Okay, so I really love docking. I think I'm going to keep it. The only problem I'm going to have is when I'm doing videos and I need to zoom in, I'll probably have to bring them out and bring them over closer to the screen to see what's going on. Okay, so right now I've got an image up on the screen that is 1,000 by 1,000 pixels by 150 ppi. I have the paper grain. This is gessoed canvas up there. I have it reversed. Remember, you can click on that and reverse it one way or the other, and I like it to be this sort of lighter color. It still presents texture, but not quite as strongly. And I have this at its default setting. Paper scale is 100, paper contrast is 100, and brightness is 50. That's the default. On my flow map, I have this weird little flow map going. It's got a lot of different just runny kind of lines going in it. Now, if I'm using the flow map in the paper, you're not going to see the lines from the flow map. It will affect the way the flow goes, but not perfectly. In other words, I'm still going to get some straight flows, but as it's flowing, these things will kind of interrupt stuff as we go. All right, so what I got to thinking about when I was trying to decide to do something on real wet oils and flow maps, I was thinking of artists like this Pinot image here. If you notice here on the side, you see this kind of runny stuff down, and the fact that he kind of scrums the images around the paint and so forth. This is perfect. This kind of stuff here is perfect for bristly dabs, and this kind of stuff over here is perfect for flow maps and runny paint. So let's go back to our image here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer, and I just pull that layer, or pull the real wet oils up to the layer. That's all right. But I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to grab, actually, I'm going too fast here. I'm going to go back to my layers, and I'm going to come back down to channel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a brush, and this is a new brush. Now, if you go to go to my blog, you'll find that there is another set of brushes that is available, and they're called FlowMap webinar brushes. And that's all of the brushes that I'm going to use will be in here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to get this 11NN, or I already had it. And I'm going to pick a kind of nice neutral color, one of these sort of light, a little bit on the warm side, but just something to kind of add a little color to the canvas. Now this brush, I've got it big, this brush as it paints will show some texture, but it also, when you pick the brush up and you dab it down, you are adding paint. But now I've got the brush down, I'm not picking it up, I'm reducing my pressure some and coming over, and it picks up some of the white. And so it will just blend as you work with these bristly dab brushes. And all I want to do here is I just want to kind of dampen, not dampen, I'm thinking I'm in watercolor again, just kind of take the edge, that white edge off the painting just a little bit so that it, you know, I don't know what it does. It just, it keeps it from being white. You know how it is when you walk up to a white canvas, it's kind of intimidating, right, Tim?
Yeah, almost like you just staining the canvas before you start painting on it. Basically.
Right. Okay, so I've got a little of that going, and the next thing I'm going to do is go up to the next layer. Now I'm going to try and do that little section that Pinot did, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab my 14M brush first, and I'm going to come over here and get that kind of a dark green that he was using. And this brush just really puts down some, nice impasto, and it's kind of gives a little bit of a hairy brush-like look on the end, and it also blends. If I come out here, I can blend it and bring in color like that. Now I'm going to get rid of those last little bits and just leave it here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to I'm going to go back to my 11mm, that's with some texture on it. Using the same brush, I'm just going to kind of scrum this out a little bit, that just so it's has a little more texture and a little more canvas is showing, but still leaving some of that going. Okay. Now I'm going to come down here and add another layer underneath that layer, and I'm going to be working on this layer. So I'm going to come now down to a brush called Very Runny Oil Flow Map. Okay, now this brush really is runny. And let's look at the flow map for, where did I put it? There you are. You got up there, you little silly thing. Let's move you back down here where you belong. Oh, can't do it. Not at this point, but that's all right. We'll leave it up here. Now, if you notice this thing, the Real Wet Oil panel is set up to make this brush very, very runny. It's also set up to take to look at the flow map when it's trying to run. I've got my angle at 270 and at 100% down, and I have accurate diffusion on. Now, accurate diffusion is a great little thing that sometimes when you see runs happening, you can get these little vertical lines around the runs or around the paper as it smooths out. This is especially true in real watercolor and in real wet oils. Accurate diffusion will take that off, but it slows your run down. So in this case, I want this thing to run really fast or a lot. So I'm going to take my accurate diffusion off. I'm going to stay in this sort of same green that we were in, but I want to take that green and move it up to the gray, kind of a gray area, little bit darker like that. Okay, now that I've done that and we are on the canvas down here, I'm going to put on pause diffusion, okay, to make sure that, you know, I've finished what I want to do before it starts to run. Okay, so we've got pause diffusion on, accurate diffusion off, and we go over here and we start putting in some color. Now, the more color you put in, or the more paint, the more it's going to run. And you can change the size of your brush. You know, you can also bring it down a little bit like this to sort of start the flow a little more. Now, what I'm going to do is undo pause diffusion, which will cause it to start running. And then I'm going to hit accurate diffusion, which will usually stop it from running, okay? So watch what's going to happen when I take off pause diffusion. It's lots of fun. All right, there you go. We're getting to get the run coming down. And see the kind of changes. I'm going to hit pause, accurate diffusion, and there it started stopping it. Now I got a big blob here, a little blob here, and a blob here that was beginning to hit some of the flow map lines that were there. I'm going to take accurate diffusion off again, put pause diffusion on. I want to get a little more over here. So I'm putting a lot of that color in, and we're going to take off pause diffusion, and there it comes, accurate diffusion. I didn't get it quite fast enough. That's always a bummer.
It certainly moves, doesn't it?
Right. All right, so I'm going to go back to pause diffusion, undo, and go stay there, and we're going to put a little bit there. Take it off over here where I'm near accurate diffusion, and come on. Oh, just making me work for my for the webinar work too hard here. All right, we'll put a little bit more in there. All right, now pause diffusion. There we go. Accurate. There we go. We're beginning to get a little bit of the lines. Now you can tell you
Skip.
can work with this. Yes. Yes, Hillary.
Somebody says they don't have the pause diffusion icon on their interface, Sumaya. Do you have to access it from somewhere for it to show?
Somebody says they don't have pause diffusion on their
Yeah,
interface?
they don't have the little icon there.
Right. All right. Your pause diffusion icon up here is only going to show if you're using a real wet oil brush or a real watercolor brush. Those are the only times it will show. For instance, if I go up here to SA Impasto M2, that's not a real wet oil brush. So if I click on that, see, my pause diffusion goes away. If I go back to the brush I've been working with, see, my pause diffusion comes back. And you also have pause diffusion over here in the real wet oil brush control panel. Okay? Hope that answered it for everybody. Now, I think the brush is set up to have accurate diffusion going. Another thing that you can do while we're talking about it, if they're really slow on your machine, take this animation step up to 10. It just means you won't see the steps as it's going through the run. It speeds it all up, and you're not going to see everything that happens. It's just going to get to the end result quicker. But it doesn't affect what it looks like. It just gets there quicker. So you might want to, on any of your real watercolors or your real wet oils, you might want to jump that animation step up. Okay. Now, the next thing is, if you look at Pinot's work or any of the others, it doesn't look like this. It's clean. It seems to be more transparent and wetter looking. And so I could come to the layer maybe and reduce the opacity of the layer, and it gets a little better, and we're beginning to see some of those marks that I put in originally with that brush that showed a little tooth. But that's not quite what I want to do. And so we have this different idea of creating a pattern from your paper and then using the pattern to fill layers and really affect the way this work looks like. Now, this technique actually started with Tim. He was doing a watercolor type class, and he took some papers that he had, some really wonderful papers, and you can get those at his site at TAQ or the Artist Corner. Anyway, he took those papers and made them seamless, or took some, what he actually did is he took photographs of real watercolor paper. He then made them seamless by a rather complex method through Photoshop. And then with them being seamless, he made them into papers and into patterns. Okay, so I was on David Gell's site the other day, which is called Jitterbrush, and I just saw this thing where it said how to make painter papers into patterns. And I thought, oh, that's what I need. So I went and looked at his setup, and it was really, really a cool way of working. But it was a little bit complex for me, and so I tweaked it a bit. And I think it's okay to do it this way, and you can try it and see what you think. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to add a layer, okay, to our painting. And actually, I would like for it to be up at the top. Okay, we're going to add a layer so I can, you know what? I'm about to mess up. I'll leave that layer there. What I'm going to do is save this image, File, Save As, and we'll call it Webnor Image Noon. And we'll say OK. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to open up a new one of those. I'm going to open this at 100 ppi. And the reason that I'm doing that is because at 100 ppi, this would be, everything is even. You've got, if you look at your canvas resize, you've got 1,000 pixels or 10 inches is what it amounts to. So it keeps everything real nice and clean, and works very well for making paper and patterns. Now, I want to go up to my brushes and go over to a new library, and I'm going into David Gell's library. And in David Gell's library, now you can go to his site, it's www.jitterbrush.com, and you can download a set of brushes called Pattern Pens Plus. So when you click on Patterns Pen Plus, he has this really wonderful brush called WYSIWYG Paper Extractor. WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG. All right, so it's WYSIWYG Paper Extractor, and I'm on that. Now, the paper that's currently set up is this gessoed canvas, and that's what I want. I want to make a pattern out of that paper. Now, to do that, the first thing I want to do is I want to set it up so that when I paint with this brush, I'm going to get seamless edges. And the way to do that is to come over here to your pattern control panel. This is your pattern control panel, and I'm going to the option button or the flyout menu, and I'm going to click on Define Pattern. It's a toggle. Now, it doesn't tell you if it's on or not on, but if I click on it, I know now it's on, okay? So I'm going to take this brush, and when you paint with this brush, you see it paints a perfect rendition of the canvas. Now, this is what I mean by Define Pattern. If you go off, it comes on the other side. So this side is seamless with this side. Same thing up here. It does seamless at the bottom. So all I need to do is just go over this whole thing, and I'm getting a completely seamless example of gessoed canvas. Okay, so while it's on the canvas layer, you need to be on the canvas layer, I'm going to go Control-A and select that image. Now I'm going to come over to my patterns, and you see I've already got this one in there. But I'm going to go over here anyway, and I'll tell you what, let's pick another pattern so we're not looking at the same thing, and we'll just come up here and put it in here. All right, so we've got this. Now, whatever library you're in, that's the library that you're going to see this pattern appear in. So now when I go over here and click on the option button, I come on down and just say Capture Pattern. And so I click Capture Pattern. I get an opportunity to name it, and I'll name it Gesso Canvas Webinar. And say OK. All right, now it's made the gessoed canvas. It's 1,000 by 1,000 pixels at 100%. So now I'm just going to minimize this for a second. I'm going to come back over to my other image, go back to this layer, okay, that I was on, and I'm going to grab my paint bucket, and I'm going to make sure that source image is selected, because it's going to go to, Painter. The source image for Painter is a cloned image, or if there's no clone, it's the pattern, the currently selected pattern. So there's no clone here, and we're going to the source image, and we're going to fill the layer. Ta-da! Yuck! It looks pretty awful, doesn't it? But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to change it to gel or multiply. You can do either one. That gives me the opportunity to see through, but it still looks pretty awful. And I found that 10 to 15% is about where I want to keep this stuff. Now, if let's go in on this a little bit. All right, so now you can see this texture a little bit better, and it's going over the whole thing. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another layer up above that. And again, I'm going to take my fill tool and fill with source image. This time I'm going to leave it at 100%, but I'm going to change it to let's see, change it to overlay.
Overlay.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I knew what I was going to change it to, but I just couldn't find it. Now, what overlay does is it really only puts it over the colored part, the whitish part. It doesn't show. Now, because I've got some kind of stained stuff in here, it's showing all over. I'm sorry. I've got some people are walking around in the room I'm working in, and it's distracting me. Were y'all hearing any of that? Okay. Well, anyway. All right. Now I'm alone again. Let's see. What was I saying? Oh yeah. It's over the colored part. Now you can play with these composite methods or blend modes in Photoshop, and you might find that some of the others work just as well. Screen makes it really pale, and lightens it up. Hard light, kind of what hard light does is it really gives you a heavy texture kind of stuff. But play around with these and see what you like. Overlay seems to be one of the best to do. Now let's take this back to where we were before. I'll move that kind of back up in the middle. All right, so we've got this. Now, I'm still not real happy with this in here. It's just a little bit too severe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my brushes, and I'm going to come to the 11. Let's see, it'll be down here, 11MN. Now that's not going to add any texture, but it will add, it'll add texture, but it won't add impasto. Because in the bristly dabs, MN means no impasto, and just a plain M means it has impasto. Okay, and I'm going to bring this up a little bit to get it kind of grayer and lighter. And I'll bring the size of it down a bit. Now I can come in here, whoa, don't do that. Before we do anything else, we'll lock these two layers, so I won't do that again. I'm going to come down here to the layer that I was on originally, and I'm just going to kind of scrum it up a little bit. See, it'll just, you can smooth it out a little and give it a little bit more of a, a look that it's lightly running.
It's incredible how real that looks.
Oh, good. I'm glad you think so. And if this little white area is a little bit much, you can come over the top of it like that. And just what I did was move up to the next layer and went over the top of it like that. Now, I also keep my layers on pick up underlying color for the most part and go from there. All right, so what would I do next? Obviously this is thick paint, and if you've got thick paint, it would cover over these spots. So the next thing that you'd want to do, now you're assuming that I've made a whole painting here, but there's no way possible I can do a whole painting, trust me. So we're going to just do parts of things. All right, the first thing is we've got the overlay stuff, which is probably the strongest. And if we click on that layer, take off the lock, and I add a new layer mask to that layer. Okay, now that means I can go in and I can paint with black, and it will take the stuff away, the texture of the canvas will go away. And let's just show you how that works. Now the brush I'm going to be using is KBRW Feather Channel Brush. It's in the group of brushes that I gave you. This was a Karen Bonacker brush, and we changed it into a channel brush, which she gives out, but I have further modified it to call it Channel 1 now. And so since we're in a a white layer mask, I need to be working with black. Okay, so if I paint right over this area, you see how that texture begins to go away? Now, I don't have to get rid of all of it, but I want to get rid of where it is thick. See, now that begins to look much more realistic than it was. Now you can, let's delete this layer mask, and I'm going to add it back and show you another way of working. Sometimes this is actually a better way, especially on the one at the bottom. But I'm going to take, I'm on black right now, so I'm going to go Control F, and I'm going to fill with current color. And because the black edge is around the layer mask, it's going to fill the layer mask with black. And we'll say, OK. Now, immediately, all of the texture went away from here. Now, I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to add a layer mask. And again, I'm going to fill it with black. There you go. See? Now, all of them are gone other than just where that, you know, the brush that I was using is sort of scrumming around was a brush that shows the canvas texture. So I'm going to go back up to my brush tool. I'm still on Karen's channel brush, but this time I'm going to take it to white. All right, now what's nice about this, I'm going to start down here on this one. And what's nice about that is I can make this kind of big, and it's going to bring the textures back, you know, the canvas texture back. And maybe I want to have canvas texture all over, but maybe not. You know, I'm going to go on and put it out here. And I kind of want it down here, especially where this is kind of runny. And I think I'll leave it out up here, and we'll start moving some of the thicker paint up there. Now, come up here, make sure the black line is around here. And we can do the same thing. Now when I paint with it over here, you see I'm getting, it's like the overlay gives like a little shadowy effect. And it kind of opens, see how it opens the, it gives more white to the watery part. And I'll just bring it up into here. And I think we'll do a little over there anyway. Actually, that's a mistake. So I'm going to take it back to black. And I'll come back over that. The reason that's a mistake is if I'm going to go paint up there, I don't want to have to do this again. Okay. All right, so see, now you can use your layer mask to make this texture be however you want it to be. Okay, is everybody sort of getting what I'm doing here? I mean, I've gone through a lot of steps, and I hope you're getting it. How do the questions look? Okay.
Well, it's by the looks of things, there's virtually no questions, so it must be absolutely crystal clear.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. All right, so let's see, what was my next step? We had flow maps.
Could you just expand that layers palette just a moment, Skip, so we can actually see what those masks look like? Because I think that would be useful.
There you go.
Claudia just says we are gobsmacked.
Okay. Back to those British terms.
Yeah, that's
Claudia.
useful, because now we can see where you've revealed it and where you've hidden it. Yeah.
This is where I get into trouble, though. See, when I don't have docking and I start bringing things out, I'm pushing things all around, and it drives me nuts. But anyway, you can see it and kind of tell what it is. Now I'm going to drag that back in. Excuse me. And I'm just going to take the layers part this time, and notice that I'm going to put it right in front of the real wet oil. And why didn't it go in? This is a test. Don't you remember?
Too many panels expanded.
Yeah.
Yay!
All right, so now it should work. There we go. Okay. Let's see. What else can I do here? I forgot what the last part of the. It doesn't matter. We'll just paint some more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to start working on an image, a little bit better image here. So what I'm going to do is turn off the eyes on both of those. I'm going to delete these masks. I'm going to leave the, what did I do? Did I delete the layer? Control Z, Control Z. I did. Okay, make sure the black line is around here before you delete. And then we'll come up here and make sure the black line's around before you delete. Now, if you get those little yucky things, let's bring this out again and show you this. Sometimes you'll get these little X marks instead of it actually deleting. Do not worry about it. It is perfectly fine because watch, all you need to do is move the layer and then move it back and it'll be gone. And then move it back. Okay, do I have those backwards? I do. Okay, so now those have been deleted and the other two are turned off, and I think I'll go in and turn these off as well. Okay, how much time have I got? I've only got 15 minutes. I know what I need to do. I knew it was something I needed to do. I want to open up this flow maps. Now you see this flow map that I have here. I kind of want to show you what that looks like. I'm going to go to File, Open. I hope I have it. Custom Painter stuff. Flow maps. Flow maps. Flow map. Okay, this was the flow map that I made. Now, what's interesting, I just remembered everything I wanted to do about flow maps. What's interesting about flow maps is that they are going to affect the flow of your real wet oil or real wet watercolor. They will be the main, the flow map will be the main thing that affects the run, provided that you have in your real wet oil or real wet, let me go back to one of my real wet brushes, provided that you have flow map selected, okay? That means it's going to run based on the flow map. Now, if you also have selected a paper that is identical to the flow map, which is this one, and notice it's at 1,000 pixels and 1,000 pixels, and this one's at 1,000, this is at 1,000, and the image that I'm working with is also 1,000 by 1,000. So everything's going to kind of work the same. Let's see. I want to make sure my grain is up to all the way up to 100%, and I want to be sure I'm on a new layer. Let's come back down here. We'll add a new layer. Okay, close that back up. Now I'm using my very runny oil flow map, and I'm going to pick a color. Uh-oh, my papers needs to be that as well. And I want to be sure that the paper and the flow map, see, they're both white with the lines being black. I want to make sure all that's the same. Okay, now I'll pick a color, and let's pick a kind of an orangey color. All right, I want to make this brush big. We got it on Pause Diffusion, but notice that when I paused, got it in black. It's because I was on the wrong thing. Okay. See how that stops the flow? Or, you know, because I have 100% grain on it and I've got the same paper as the flow map, then you're going to see these lines that I created. Now, when you release the flow, it tends to bleed out into the line some. You know, it just depends on how much you put in there, and you know how it goes. If you'll notice, I'm getting some flow in here, but it's not a huge amount. It's flowing mostly from the top, and I'm losing some of the lines, but you still have some of it showing. Okay. Now, I'm going to wait till it finishes. Remember, you want to always be kind of watching this, and once it finishes, it'll drop back down to no flow map. Now, if I add a new layer, let's take this layer and turn it off, and we'll add a new layer. And I'm going to come over here to my flow map, and I'm going to invert it. And I'm going to my paper, and I'm going to invert that. Now, when we apply the same color, I'm going to go into the lines, okay? Now, unfortunately, flow doesn't mean that it will come down the page. When I put that Pause Diffusion back on, doesn't mean it'll come down the page, and when it gets to this little line, it'll flow diagonally until it gets a place to flow down again. The flow is always straight down. If you have a lot of paint up here, then it'll break through these lines and come on down. The lines will also expand a bit. So let's just do it about this far. Now I'm going to try and put a fair amount of paint in it up at the top. Now notice how it does get some in the background, but that's okay. I just want you to see the different look of how this goes. All right, so I take off the concentration, which I did, but it didn't stop turning blue. Oh, I thought I did. There we go. All right, so now it's beginning to run.
Skip.
Yes. Yes, Hillary?
Question from David. Will the flow change direction in accordance with a rotated canvas?
Not with the rotated canvas, but it will change in accordance with the angle that you set the wind at.
Right.
Does that make sense? Let me let this flow, and we'll do that in the very next one. That's a good question. Thank you, David. But look, see, I love the way this stuff looks. I mean, I think it's very interesting. This is a little bit busy. You know, I probably wouldn't do this much stuff, but it's very interesting to me. Now, another thing that would happen that I haven't really done is to show you what happens when you have multiple colors. One of the things that you see in the real wet oil and the real wet oil is you have a thing called blend rate, and I usually keep that up pretty high so that it'll blend as much as possible. So let's try a little different here. Now, you see this angle, David? That determines the wind direction or the way it flows. So if I take this down to, let's say I take it to 180. Okay, now before I do anything else, I'm going to add another layer and explain one little thing. Okay, so I'm going to go to Skip's pencils. There we go. And we'll go to a black again. Y'all hear my cat? Okay, now here's a circle, wonderful circle, and here are the cardinal points. This is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270, this is 360. So 0 or 360, the flow goes that way. 90, the flow goes that way. 270, the flow goes that way. And 180, the flow goes that way. Any numbers in between here and there, the flow goes like that. Any numbers in between those two, the flow goes like that. So it depends on the angle that you set. Now, we have set it to, let me go back. We'll delete there. We'll just turn that off. Come back down to this layer, and we'll go back to the brush I need, which is custom 1. And we need this very runny flow map brush, okay? All right, so we're back over here on the same layer. I have that going at the top. I'm going to turn that one off, and I'm going to come back up here with another layer. And this time I'm going to add multiple colors. I'm going to start with, let's start with this kind of peachy color. Whoops, before we do anything, turn that off. And I want to reverse this. Why is that doing that? That's just the opposite of what I was expecting it to do. No, it's right. Okay. So I'm going to put this on. Then I'll put a dark blue on. And then I'm going to take this kind of light yellow, put that in. And let's put a bright orange at the very top. Okay, now actually I should have been going this direction because I forgot about the fact that the flow is going to be that direction now. It's going to be toward our left. All right, well that's good enough. So we'll take off the flow concentration, or not concentration, the flow, the pause diffusion, and you see how the flow now is going in the other direction. So you can make it do anything. Now actually you can stop at this point and we can change it back to 270. Or some other number. And when I let it go again, now it's going to start flowing down the page. See how it's flowing down? It's lost some of its it's verve. Is that the word? some of its hubris. That would be a
now everyone's even more gobsmacked.
Oh, I see. But look, isn't that pretty? And again,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, again, if you were trying to make some sort of interesting background or whatever, this is a really cool way to do it. Yeah.
So, sorry, a couple of questions. One from C and a curiosity from me. Presumably, that flow resistance value determines just how kind of sticky the flow map is in terms of the paint and the way it flows. And that was mine. And the one from Sears, which I think is really interesting, how do we create a flow map from paper or vice versa, so you can use the same image for the paper and the flow map?
Well, that's really simple because you take your paper and you click on, you take your flow map and you click on create from current paper. So it just makes it from the current paper.
Right.
The pattern was the thing that was a little hard to make. But yeah, the flow maps are really simple. I mean, you can make them just like you can with paper and any of the other stuff.
Okay.
All right, so then, all right, we've done all that. What does it look like if we come up here and turn on our little things? See it? Again, we're getting that brighter, beautiful color. And again, we could reduce the opacity slightly, to make it do whatever we want. And then all you're ready to do now is just add another layer, and you're ready to come in here and grab, let me go back to, I want to go now to my regular paper. You know what? I have all this stuff. I forget that I put this stuff on my palettes. All right, so this is a way for me to go back to my paper. I have multiple types of paper down here. So I could then go to my, I would probably go to, let's go to 12MN, and we'll pick what kind of color shall we pick in here? Let's go in and pick, let's pick a little red here. And so I could start, making a set of flowers. And I usually start with something that's not quite so impasto, just to sort of get the general idea of what I'm going to be making here, or the shapes of it and so forth. And so then I would come into, I have 12M, so I'd come into 12M, which is the impasto version of this. Now I would probably start taking it down to a different color. And I actually probably need to put some of this down here so that I can get some of these grays and little variations of color here that I might need. I love our mixer pad. Don't y'all love it? It's just so neat. All right, so I'm going to get this. I guess nobody loved it.
I love it. I'm envious of it. I want Photoshop to have one.
I know. Well, Photoshop will grow up one day.
just while you're annoying me.
Right.
Claudia asks at the same time, but as an extension from the last question, we can make flow maps from papers, and I've just had a look, but can we make papers from flow maps?
No.
No, that's what I thought.
No, you can't, but
Photoshop could, I've no doubt.
Right, it's hard. But no, probably. Yeah, they have flow maps, right? No, remember that flow maps, I mean, papers and all the other stuff, there are lots of ways to make papers, lots of ways to make patterns. But flow maps can be made from those kinds of things, so
sure. That's
what you want to do, is just make it from those. All right, we need some dark in here somewhere. So I'm going to
and of course the likelihood is if you got a flow map of a particular kind, you would more than likely want a paper of a particular kind. So it makes sense to make a paper and then make a flow map from it.
Right. The combination of the two is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right, now where are we going to go with this? I'll tell you what, we're going to switch brushes. We're going to go to 14M. Okay. Let's put a little more of that bright in. Bring this brush down a bit. This brush doesn't seem to be as thick as it used to be, which means I've lost something about it. This one is thicker though. I really love painting like this, but for me it's a hit or miss. You know, it's not always that good. Oh, it's 102. Well, let's go a little bit longer, and I'll tell you what, I won't try and make this so perfect.
This reminds me so much, and I do mean it as a compliment. Years ago now, I spent a long time painting roses and castles on canal barges, and this so reminds me of that. Because it's a similar kind of one-stroke technique.
Right.
You know,
Right. I think that would be interesting. All right, I'm going to take my very runny oil brush again. I'm putting it on a layer underneath the flowers, turning on that concentration. And of course, this would look really stupid if I'm going to have, you know, some leaves and stuff under here. Probably, you know, would look funny, but this is what people do with this. Like if we go back up and look at this, they tend to let it run from the same sort of color. So we come back up here, and I'm putting this stuff in. I hope changing didn't take off the pause diffusion. All right, so I want to close the layer and open up real wet because I want to be over here by accurate diffusion. So I'm going to take off accurate diffusion first and then take off pause diffusion. And there we come with our run, and we'll stop it. And maybe I want to go to 11M. And we'll just scrunch it up a little bit. Okay, so then the next step would be to come in and pull the real wet oil out. And we'll close that, and we'll try to put it back where it belongs with real watercolor. There we go. And I'm going to go to the layers, and I'm going to come up here, and again we're going to add a layer mask. I'm going to, yes, go ahead.
We've got quite a few questions coming in at the moment.
Great. All right, tell me some of them.
Okay, Claudia's saying she was thinking that we have the flow maps, but we don't seem to have the matching papers from all of them.
What flow map? The flow maps I sent you?
Yes,
the ones that I gave? Yeah, there are not any papers matching most of those. At the time I did that, I was just playing mostly with flow maps. Guys, you need to make your own flow maps. You need to find out how they work for you and how you can use them in your painting. I'm just showing one way. I mean, I can think of other things that we can do with these, but I just wanted to show you this one way that I think has a real nice look to it and gives you an authentic look with watercolor, with the real wet oils. Okay, now.
Next question.
Okay, sure.
Kathleen says, will all the layers be shown open before the end of the video? She's obviously fascinated. I mean, we all are.
Yeah, I'll pull out all the layers and let you see them. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Right.
Is there an easy way to change how quickly the flow is on the very runny oil flow map brush?
No, you just have to change the angle. There's no way to put that on a panel or anything else. You just need to be aware of what's going on.
Right. Ed asks, can I use flow maps with selections?
Yes, you can. What's going to happen with a selection is you'll paint inside of the selection, and then the flow will, inside of that selection, will be active with the flow map. Now remember, wet stuff doesn't stay within a selection. It will flow out. So you'll have some cleanup to do, and I could show you that if we've got time, how to clean that up. Got another one?
So you can use any paint, then go to real wet and make them all run together, Sumaya asks.
Kind of. That is a good question. I'm going to stop for that one for a second and show something. This real wet, let's add another layer right here. No, I don't want to add another layer. I want to be on this same layer here. Now, I'm going to take the real wet oil flow map, which, does this one, no, not that one. I'm going to take the one that's called Pale Runny Flow Map. Now, Pale Runny Flow Map will actually lighten in color, and it also has a fair amount of pickup. So it's going to pick up color that it goes over. So let's take, I am going to do a new layer because this will be easier. Let's take one of the other brushes. We'll just take this 16 Impasto M, and we'll put a nice blue. That's not a nice blue. There we go. There. All right, now I'm going to go back to the pale flow map, and I'm going to pick a color like, let's just pick this yellow. All right, now I'm going to put the flow map up here, put a lot there. I don't know if I've still got the same flow map going or not. Hope I do. Well, that wasn't very good because I forgot about my accurate diffusion. So I want to take off accurate diffusion, and we'll put this up. Lots of stuff there. And I don't have my pause diffusion on, so it'll just start running. Now see how it runs through, bleeds, and then picks the color up and runs on down? It's not that this is flowing, but it flows through it and gives you the appearance of going over the top. Okay, now that's the one that's called Pale Runny Flow Map. And when you put like a dark color down and let it flow, it's going to pale out. Now this one will give you those vertical line things that happen in there. So you might want to be prepared to try to quickly do the accurate diffusion to stop it before it gets to that point. I swear I put it on. It may have gone on and off at the same time. But anyway, so you don't get those little lines. Now, does that answer that question? Probably.
Yep. Seems so.
All right, so we delete that. Go ahead.
I just answered David, but probably need you to correct me. He was asking what governs the speed of the flow. My reply was that the wind force governs the extent of the flow, but the apparent speed on screen is governed by those animation steps. Is that correct?
No, I mean, yes, that is correct, but it also is governed by whatever the flow map is. For instance,
right.
The flow map,
the flow resistance, presumably.
Right, and the flow map we're using right here has a lot of ways that it can run. But if I change this flow map to the gessoed stuff, now it will still flow. And also don't forget that you know, this accurate diffusion, if that's on, it's going to slow it down a lot. So I'm going to leave it on first, and I'll put this down and let it flow. Now see how little it flowed there with this? Take it back to the drips. We'll do about the same thing. And see, it flows more that way. But also I was on accurate diffusion. Now we'll go one more. Take off accurate diffusion. And see, way more. Okay? So
right. Yeah.
Those are the things that you want to watch. Now, this animation step definitely does affect it too, but you'll see. If I bring it down to 2, you see how it's a little slower than it was? I don't know if y'all noticed that or not, but we'll try it again. Up to 10, I think that's faster, but it may not be much.
So in effect, animation step is just the speed that the screen redraws at.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Guys, we've been an hour and 13 minutes. All I was going to do next was that, we were back in, we were back with our layers, and I was back up here. And I was inside the layer mask, and I was going to grab that brush again, and with a white paint, I would come in and begin to show the texture. Oh, I went too far. I didn't mean to go over that. And so you could kind of leave some of that going. It's almost like scrumbly. And then you come up here, same white, and I will want to put this in here and pretty much all up here. Kind of like that. And so that's sort of the start of how I would do one of those paintings. Not very good, but, we're on a webinar. Can't work as well there.
I think it's fabulous.
Okay.
I can clearly see that everyone else does as well. So.
Okay, great. All right, so y'all get the idea of how this works. We've gone over docking. That's a really cool tool, and it really helps me stay clean. We've gone over how to make the pattern using David's technique with a little tweak. All that David didn't do is he didn't use the defined pattern. He did something else that was a little more complex. And putting them up here over the layers and selecting the layer content, the composite method, that was from Tim. Picked up from him when he was doing it for Photoshop. But all of these techniques, the thing you really want to do with this stuff is you want to find the way it works for you. And I'm only showing flow maps in one way, and for the oil. And if you look at it without the texture, you see that it's kind of, it looks a little pasty. It's kind of like it's like icing. And I wish it didn't have that sort of icing look. But if you do these things that, we did before, plus now another thing that you could try is try changing this to gel. And that will make it a little bit brighter. Of course, if I open this up, it'll make it even more wild. But that'll make it a little bit brighter. And then again, when you're adding these steps to it, it gets it pretty cool. All right, well, I think that was all I wanted to tell you about today. I'm sure after it's over I'll think of something else and bring it into the last one. I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar. And are there any other questions, Tim, Hillary, that I need to try and answer?
Nope.
One question, a couple of questions. First of all, I don't know whether you've answered it already when I wasn't listening. When the recording will be available, Skip?
Probably sometime later today. I'm not sure. I don't know. It'll be in the next day or so. I've got to process it, and I need to find out exactly where I'm going to link it. I think it's going to be linked through Corel's channels, YouTube channels, rather than being on the blog, but I'll put a link on the blog for wherever it is.
Right, and Ben has just typed in, does this technique work the same for watercolour?
Actually, yes, it would work the same for watercolor. You know, you can make running watercolor. I'm assuming that I've done so many techniques with watercolor, I'm assuming you're talking about the patterns. These would work the same. As a matter of fact, I normally do a watercolor pattern over the top of my watercolors. As a matter of fact, I even have templates already set up like that. So it's already set up to go.
Which would be a great idea for this technique.
Yes, I would set up templates for any of these so that you don't have to redo this stuff and it's all set up and ready for you to go. So yeah, you can do the same thing for watercolor. Any others? Well, great. Hillary, Tim, thank you all so much for helping. Everybody, don't forget that at 2 o'clock, Winifred Whitfield has a webinar that's sponsored by Wacom, and she's going to be talking about painting portraits. So if you've got the time, go to her webinar, and then I'll be back at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or I think we're at Daylight Savings Time, tonight. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye, everybody. I can't find my little bye-bye button. Here it is. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See y'all later.